jealous for me. He loves like a hurricane. I am a tree bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I'm unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, and I realize just how beautiful you are and how great your affections are for me. And oh, how he loves us all. Oh, how he loves us. How he loves us all.
plain work.
When work at home is planned and organized for cooperation, there can usually be more time for leisure.
I'm certainly in favor of those things. Leisure, fun.
Who isn't?
Wouldn't we all be happier if we worked out a little system for living together in harmony?
But how can we manage them?
We'll have to work out the full answer together.
Say, Mom, you're swell.
Most family problems can be solved through frank and friendly discussion, which points the way to a happy family life.
You know, this is beginning to be quite a family project.
It certainly is.
Well, good morning. My name is Dean Ward, and I serve as the lead pastor of the River. And it is March, and I'm so glad we made it to March 1st, 2026. And I'm wearing green, baby. It is my month to preach in green because I'm Irish. So there you go. Hey, we are in our series of messages on the family. And I want to welcome you to our online service today. And I understand that sometimes when we do a family series that it can be painful on a lot of fronts, in a lot of ways, for a lot of reasons. So I really appreciate you sticking with us. And I want to share a little feedback that I've been getting from people. First of all, I have a friend who watches faithfully every week out of state, and he said to me recently, he said, Dean, do you realize how many times you say the word simply in a message? Now, he asked me if he could give me some feedback, and I said, sure. And so he said, you say simply in a message at least 4, 5, or 6 times. It drives me nuts. And I said, oh, I didn't even know I did that. He goes, I've thought about making it a drinking game that every time you say simply, I take a shot of alcohol. And I'm like, well, in order to reach your friends that don't go to church, why don't you have them all over on Sunday morning and make it a big drinking game? He goes, that would be great. I'm like, no, don't do that. That was just a joke. Hey, but I did give this disclaimer in person last week, and I wanted to share it with you. Every year, we try to preach on the family, and this year, we subscribed to a service and purchased this sermon series called My Imperfect Family. And we've personalized it, of course, with our, our family stories and illustrations, and also work really hard to make sure that we use it in a way that kind of represents who we are as a church and the way we communicate. But I wanted you to know, if you go online and you search Our Imperfect Family and you find this sermon series, you may think, oh, Pastor Dean stole this. No, we subscribe to it. And just want you to know that Mark and I write about 98 to 99% of the series of messages that we share. But sometimes we want just another perspective from someone who's put this together, maybe wiser, older, although that's getting harder and harder these days. But and so we found this series and thought that it would be really helpful. Now, given that, I mentioned that in the first sermon Sunday, and after church, somebody walked up to me, very excited, very, very excited, and ready to give me the verbal affirmation of a lifetime. And they looked at me and said, Pastor Dean, I just want you to know that was the best sermon you've ever preached. I can't remember a better sermon than that. And I just didn't quite know how to take that. And I thought, well, I just acknowledged that I didn't write all of this material on my own, and then he said it was the best sermon ever. So I found that amusing. I hope that you do as well. So we are in part 3 of this series on our imperfect family. And today we're going to talk about on purpose parenting. We're going to talk about parenting, and we're going to do it in a way that I hope is helpful. Now, this series, this message, came pre-written with the most important verse, the most influential verse in parenting in all of Scripture. Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6. I learned it in the King James Version, and it goes something like this. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Now, this verse has been leaned into, trusted, counted on, and depended on the truthfulness of this verse forever. There's only one little problem with this verse as it's translated into the English language. And that is that in the original language, this verse was written. Do you know what language that was? That's the language of Hebrew. Proverbs 22:6 in Hebrew does not have the word should. And so for thousands of years, people have leaned into this verse. If I just train up my child in the way he should go, then I'm guaranteed in Scripture that when he is old, he will not depart from it. But the word should is not in Hebrew. Now, this part isn't in the sermon that was written, so we just wanted to spend some time here in the first part of this sermon talking about the way this verse is literally written and how we can best understand it. Now, first of all, it's important to understand that Proverbs is not a book of absolute promises that if you do this, then this will happen, okay? It is not like a math equation, 2 + 2 = 4. It is a book that delineates if you take these actions and live this way and pursue these things, you will be wise. And then it contrasts if you choose the opposite and go this path and this way, you're a fool. So Proverbs typically contrasts wise and foolish living. So I want to just spend some time talking about this verse. In the NIV, it says, start children off on the way they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. It means to get something started or initiate something. Start them off on a certain path. But even though the word should is not in the Hebrew, it literally means train up a child in his way. Initiate a child on his path. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. Now, it is understood in the Hebrew to be the opposite of the right thing to do. It's understood by scholars to be saying, if you train up a child and let them go their own way, if you train up a child in their way, when they are old, they will not depart from it. But it's kind of like two sides of the same coin, whether it's understood in a negative way. Hey, if you let them go in their way from childhood on, when they're old, they won't depart from it, or train them up in the way they ought to go, and when they're old, they won't depart from it. It's an interesting nuance that is worth our attention. Proverbs chapter 14, verse 12 cautions us against what this verse is declaring. And that is that there is a way that appears to be right, but in the end, it leads to death. The big deal in this passage is that the word should is not there in the Hebrew. Now, it is an inference. It is inferred, train up a child in the way he should go. But The word should is not there. Now, understanding, there are a few ways, given this information, there are a few ways to understand this verse. Now, I know, you may not get all geeked up about this, but for whatever reason, this one has really caught my attention. And so give me an umbrella of grace as I spend just a little time looking at how this verse in the original language, without the word should, how it could be understood. It could mean train up a child the moral way, God's way. And especially as you balance this verse among the whole of Scripture, that is a very appropriate understanding. So when the interpreters of Scripture in English translate the verse, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it, that's not heretical. That kind of lines up with the whole of Scripture. But another way this verse could be understood is train a child aligned with their unique design, temperament, and disposition. Wise parenting recognizes our children's unique personalities. Guide them in God's way, in the way God designed them. So let me kind of show you how this works in our family, or how this has worked in our family with our 4 children. Now, I'm still parenting. I have 3 adult children still living at home as they are finding their way in their 20s, but they are gainfully employed, and we're grateful for that. And so here's how this played out as far as God's unique wiring and design and temperament and disposition for each of our 4 kids. Zoe, our oldest, she is why we have Abby, Alex, and Emma Ruby. She was so easy as a child. We felt like we were brilliant. This is a piece of cake. She was compliant. She was agreeable. She was not overly up and down. She was calm. She was steady. She was a whole lot of fun. She was quite motherly. She always wanted to open the Christmas and birthday presents for her younger siblings because they couldn't figure out how to do it, so she wanted to take charge and handle that for them. And she has grown as an adult now to find her own voice, and she is a strong, beautiful woman. Her and her husband Tyler have our 2 grandchildren. Who knows, by the time this comes out on March 1st, they may have given birth to our 3rd. She's due on March 1st, so we will see. But she is a great child and has become a great person and a great mother. And she is also our children's ministry director here at the River Kids. And so we are blessed as a church by Zoe. Now, Abby, she is our 2nd child. And for whatever reason in our family, the 2nd children always have blonde hair and always have blue eyes and always stir things up. Now, our daughter Abby, she is considerably agreeable, but she needs some lead time to be agreeable. For instance, we couldn't come home on a Thursday night while they were in school and say, "Hey guys, we just had this great idea. We're going to take our whole family and go bowling after dinner tonight." When we would do that, Abby would just dig in with resistance, and she wouldn't want to do it and caused great consternation. And it was like, wow, okay. Well, what we learned, because we're a little slow and it takes us a little while, is that with Abby, if we would give her a day or 2 advance notice, she was completely agreeable. If we had said Monday or Tuesday, "Hey, Thursday after dinner, we'd like to go bowling as a family," she would say, "Okay." And then we would do it. Abby as well. Her name means joy of the Father. And Abby, you are that. My son Alex, his unique wiring, temperament, and disposition, he's a lot like I was when I was a kid. I noticed with my mother, whenever she would ask me to do something, I would immediately respond no. And then give me 10 minutes or a half hour, and I would come around to it. Now, my son, same thing. Last night, we had something in the oven, and the timer went off for it to be pulled out of the oven. He was in the kitchen getting the garbage, and we said, "Hey, Alex, pull that dish out of the oven." He goes, "No, I'm taking out the garbage." I'm like, "Wait, the garbage can's right there. The oven's right there. Just pause and take it out." But I'm like, okay. So I heard him come back in after he took out the garbage. And I'm like, "Alex, can you take the thing out of the oven?" He goes, "I'm handling the garbage, but yes, I will." I know with Alex, when asked to help, his immediate answer usually is no. But then give him time, and the yes will come. And what I've learned is my son, he has plans, and he has his day thought through. He's organized and structured, and he does not like to be interrupted. He does not like those plans derailed. And so for my son, I'm mindful of that. When I get a no from him, I don't think, "Oh, my son is disobedient." Like, no, I have to honor the way the Lord wired and developed my son's temperament and disposition. Now, Emma Ruby, she's just the opposite. She is up for the interruption and adventure. 2 Saturdays ago on Valentine's Day weekend, my wife and I stayed in Pittsburgh, and I came back to do a funeral Saturday morning. And I stopped by the church because I had to run in to do something. And I came out before heading back down to Pittsburgh, and I realized I locked my keys in my car. And luckily, there was a second set of keys, but it was at my mechanic's house a half hour away. So I called my friend that's my mechanic and asked him. He goes, "Yeah, they're there at my house." And I said, "Okay, I'll be up in a half hour to get them." And I called my daughter, Emma Ruby, and I said, "Ruby, what are you doing?" She goes, "Why? What do you need?" I said, "I need a ride a half hour to get the keys and then a ride back." And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to interrupt her day, an hour out of. And she goes, "Okay, I'll do that." And she came and picked me up, and we had a delightful half-hour drive back, up and a half-hour drive back. I know that Emma Ruby is up for the interruption. Now, when she's up for the adventure, it also means she brings a lot of highs and lows to our house emotionally. She's often flying high with great exuberance and excitement, and then sometimes she crashes into real low places emotionally. Now, I did call her this afternoon and went over this with her and asked her if I could share this, as I did with Zoe as well. I say all that to say, we are called to train up our children, not in a cookie-cutter pattern, not in a one-size-fits-all, but honoring and respecting the unique and creative ways that God designed and created them to be. This verse also could be translated, as I described earlier, third option, train up a child in a way that seems right to them. And if we do this, I will find it hard to get them off the path when they are older. Or a fourth understanding of Proverbs 22:6 in the Hebrew is that it's left intentionally ambiguous in order to highlight the malleability of children. Now, each of these understandings have value and fit accurately within the theme of Proverbs, the theme of a foolish way to live and a wise way to live. Set them on the right path. They are malleable. You can't easily change their path once they're on it. The path they choose early will often stick with them, most likely for a very long time. So how does this verse speak into our cultural moment of parenting? Well, we notice, if you look around, that some parents prescribed to the permissive parenting model. I'm just going to let my kids do whatever they want. I'm not going to have boundaries for them. I'm not going to say no to them. I'm going to permit them to do whatever they want. Woo! That has its own set of wow challenges and may reflect more accurately how Hebrews writes Proverbs 22:6, that if you set them on the way that seems right to them, when they're older, they will not depart from that way. Another way that I see parents sometimes parenting is when they choose to get their identity, worth, and value from their children. Now, I just have to say, this is a very heavy weight for our children. Our children are not designed to be the source of our value and worth and identity. And this will lead to manipulation, codependency, stress, and unhealthy boundaries. Be careful, parents. You have value and worth to God on your own, regardless if you have children or don't have children. It's great to take great pride in your children, but when you forfeit your identity to the power of your children, you are setting yourself up for unhealthy patterns in your life. Sports. Parents that lean into sports as the main pathway that they're going to take for their parenting. I just want to say that sports are great, and teammates in sports will become a tribe with parental commitment and involvement. I am so grateful to see parents that take their children and invest time, effort, and energy in their career as hockey players, in their softball games, in their journey as softball players or football players. I'm grateful for the investment that parents make in the lives of their children when it comes to sports. But I want to just caution, be careful not to let sports be your primary, most sacred investment in your kids' lives. And here's why. Your children, best case scenario, they will end their sporting career in their 30s. Now, that's the very rare instance where they become a professional athlete and succeed to the place that carries them on athletically into their 30s. That rarely happens. Most of the time, it ends in middle school, junior high, high school, or college. But however, when you invest in their spiritual formation and in their relationship with Jesus Christ, that is an investment that will carry on forever. We're filming today at the river in our new nursery. We had our nursery upstairs in a smaller room that we have outgrown. We have so many brand new babies here at our church that we had to move our nursery down to a larger room. And I wanted to start the message out in this room to show the commitment, a place of commitment and investment in your children's lives as parents from the earliest of ages. Now, in our culture, sometimes you see parents that subscribe to pal parenting. Oh, my kids, they're my best buddies. They're my best friends. And we abdicate parenting so that we can be pals. And that presents some challenges. Some subscribe to abdication, not abduction parenting. Abdication parenting. Yeah, I'm a parent because I abducted some other kids, some other parents' kids. No, that's abdication parenting. That's where they just say, I will just let my kids decide about God and about religion and about church. They are not intentional. But as we will see in just a few moments, that Deuteronomy chapter 6 talks about the benefit and the need to be intentional about our parenting. Our culture is turning out so many foolish people because they abdicated parenting to social media. I want to share with you just a few helpful books that might help you with parenting. Now, these books, the first two are not known as Christian books, but they speak into where we are culturally with our kids. The first is just called Take Back the Game: How Money and Mania Are Ruining Kids' Sports and Why It Matters, by Linda Flanagan. Or the famous book, This Anxious Generation: How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness, by Jonathan Haidt, H-I-A-I-D-T. Or a friend of ours, Pastor Brock Morgan, wrote a book called The Anxious Teen: Ministry with Stressed and Fearful Children. If you raise your children in a way that allows them to continue in their natural, self-centered desires, getting their own way, then they will grow up fully given to self-centeredness. This is an interpretation of Proverbs 22:6. Proverbs 22:6 as well does not occur in many of the translations from Hebrew, in that the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Old Testament, it does not even include Proverbs 22:6. Neither does the Vulgate, which is the Latin translation of the Old Testament. It does not include Proverbs 22:6. What it literally says is, a young man, according to his way, even when old, will not depart from it. I'm going to get off the Proverbs 22:6. I think I've went there long enough. But I want to, before we pause for the last part of the message, I want to show you two pictures that I have. I just want to give a little disclaimer that my wife kills every plant that she has. She struggles so hard to keep her plants alive. She does not have a green thumb. She knows it. We joke around about it. I never buy her living plants, except for basil, because it brings her great joy. But within 2 months, her basil plant is dead, and we start all over again. Well, last week I was with a friend down in Tupelo, Mississippi, and his wife, Angie, when I walked into their kitchen, she had an herb garden growing in her kitchen. I took these two pictures because it caught me so off guard, and it looked so beautiful. And Leslie loves to cook with herbs, and I'm like, Leslie, you got to see this. And I sent her these pictures, and she said, yeah, that would all be brown within just a couple months if that was in my kitchen. And then I listened to Angie as she explained to me the amount of care and attention and intentionality that she had to take to ensure the health and vibrancy of each of the herbs that are in this apparatus that keeps them watered and lit. And I thought, this is a good plant grower. She is intentional. She takes the time, effort, and energy. Now, the reality is, that we can kill and destroy our children's probability of going the right way if we neglect this sacred moment in their lives. This speaks to the permissive parenting point that we want to make. And I just want to ask, will you commit to on-purpose parenting? Permissive parenting or passive parenting will put your kids at a higher risk. In just a moment, I'll come back with some practical things that you and I can do to help us with on-purpose parenting. For the last part of this message, we have moved into the preschool room here at our church, and it is right next to the nursery, and it represents another investment of parents into the lives of their children, that they, from the earliest of ages, commit to bringing them to church, that they're intentional on purpose, making the effort to expose their children to the love of Christ as it's lived out here by adults in our church, by those who teach them, by those who care for them, and by their parents at home. And so I wanted to film in our preschool room, and I just wanted to point out that raising children, it's not about getting everything right. I have made so many regrettable mistakes in the lives of my children, but I have always prayed that my children would grow up to love God and others with all of their heart. And I'm so grateful for this faith community because this church did not put undue pressure on my children as the pastor's kids. And you loved my kids to where they have great memories of church. And this church helped them grow in love for God and others. And it wasn't a detriment to that. And so it's with a grateful heart that I thank you who are part of the river in the investment of your life into the lives of my children, just as we as a church are committed to the spiritual development and health and wellness of your children on their journey with God. On-purpose parenting means focusing not on the immediate results, but on faithful investment in their daily lives, providing love, guidance, and correction rooted in God's wisdom. Parenting is one of the hardest jobs out there, whether you have 1 or 4 or 8. You're expected to teach your kids everything: manners, morals, faith, and somehow raise them into fully functional adults who love Jesus and others. That is no small task. My dad, when we were adults, would often say, I wouldn't want to try it again. He felt like we got lucky with the 3 that we were given, but it's a lot. Well, I want to help you with 3 things. First of all, I want to encourage you to plant, nurture, and pray. Because you are invited to start your children off on the way that they should go. Proverbs 22:6 that we spent so much time talking about. Start them off in this direction. Raising children is like gardening. You plant seeds of faith and values and character into their lives. They listen. They watch. They model so much of their lives following what you do and how you behave and your attitudes and your interactions at home. And so when we plant intentional seeds of faith, of love, of grace, of forgiveness, of goodness, of kindness into their lives, it helps. I've shared often that I would encourage my children regularly, make wise choices, and choose good friends. And those two things have served them well. Not every choice was a great choice. Not every friend was a great friend. But by and large, that prayer, that encouragement came to fruition. So I want to invite you to plant seeds of faith in their lives. Nurture those seeds. Bring them to church. Engage them in conversations about God. Pray with them at dinner and at bedtime. Pray with them in elementary school, junior high, and high school, middle school and high school. Whenever they have stress, just say, hey, can I pray for you? So many times now, my adult children will say to me, Dad, would you just pray for me? This week, I was facing something with my son that was going to be very emotional for both of us as we were going to navigate something very sad in our lives. And he just said, hey, Dad, will you just pray with me before we go here and do this? And I said, I certainly will. Pray for your children out loud. Nurture them in faith. I want to invite you then to trust the results with God. We can't control everything. We can't guarantee everything. So I want to ask if you would look for small, intentional ways to plant these seeds, praying with your children, speaking words of affirmation to them, modeling forgiveness in your home. I want to invite you to trust that God is working even when you don't see the immediate results. Parenting is a marathon, not a sprint. Our goal as parents isn't to control the outcomes. It's to create a loving, God-centered environment where faith can flourish. Secondly, I want to invite you to discipline together. If you are married and living in the same house with your spouse and you are raising your children together, I cannot speak into the importance enough of being aligned when it comes to how you discipline your children. Discipline aligned with grace. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 11 says, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. Discipline is one of the hardest things of parenting. One time when my son was young, he got quite upset. I'm sure I interrupted him with something, and he went upstairs and he slammed his bedroom door shut. I didn't explode on him. I didn't lose my mind. I just went upstairs with a hammer and, no, I didn't I didn't use it on him, a hammer and a chisel, and I took the pins out of the hinges and I removed his door for a period of time so he could no longer slam it. I think that was the last time he slammed the door. It's important that our children understand that there is accountability, that there are consequences to our decisions, that it's important that they see integrity, that we keep our word with them. They need to see this and they need to experience it. Hebrews 12:11 reminds us that while discipline is difficult in the moment, it produces peace and righteousness in time. Discipline is not about punishment. It's about teaching. It's about training. It's about helping them grow. And when we correct with grace, we show our children that love isn't conditional. It's okay to make mistakes, but it's important to learn from them. This kind of correction helps our kids develop character that will carry them throughout their life. So I just want to ask, the next time your child needs correction, frame it as an opportunity to teach, not just punish. Show grace by reminding your children that their mistakes don't define them. God's love does. Discipline done with aligned grace becomes a tool for growth. It teaches our kids that they are deeply loved even when they mess up. And finally, I just want to point out, it's so important. Be present and not perfect. When we strive to be the perfect parent, we put so much pressure on ourselves. But when we commit to being present in their lives, engaging with them, that's great parenting. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 6 and 7 describes parental presence this way. It says, these commands, the Lord is speaking, and he says, these commands that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you tuck them in or when you lie down and when you get up. Children need our presence more than they need us to be perfect parents. The most important lessons in life happen in the small, ordinary conversations around the dinner table, during car rides, and at bedtime. On-purpose parenting means showing up consistently. Your kids don't need you to have all the answers. They need you to be present, to listen, and to love them through every season. So, as I wrap this up, I just want to encourage you, find one moment each day to connect with your kids. Whether it's a conversation on the ride to school or over dinner, at bedtime, or a walk outside. Remember, faith is caught at home more than it is taught in a classroom. Your example is more powerful than any lesson that you can give. So may you parent with a purpose. May you guide your children. May you bring them to faith. May you invite Jesus to be part of your life and your home life and your children's lives. Will you live it and model it, not as perfect parents, but as intentional parents on purpose, bringing them to faith, bringing Jesus to them. God bless you guys. Thank you so much for joining in with us, and we thank you for your love for God and your love for others and your love for your children. God bless you all.